I'm approaching my mid-30s, right? What are people around my age asking that I should probably ask myself?
Where should I spend my time such that it's a meaningful use of my life?
It's a great question. I do ask myself that.
What are the differences in like maybe trends, right? In what the 20-year-olds are asking and what the 30-year-olds are asking?
In my experience at 20s or amongst the 20s, or at least those that I've been mentoring and then having some levels of coaching, whether they're making the right choice. So it's more broad. Which industry should I go? Which industry should I be going into? Is this the right career path for me? How do I accelerate myself so that I can do well in my role? If I'm taking on this management associate position, is this right for me?
Right.
So I think just getting more advice and finding out whether that's the right choice and will that make them happy.
I'm making an assumption here, okay? I think with many professions, right, especially service-based where you interact with people, there's usually a bell curve. 80% of people are asking the same 10 questions and 80% of people need this same 10 advice. In a short podcast, right, how can we lead better lives?
For that, I will ask people to think about life more holistically. So generally, when we think about what it means to lead a good life, particularly in a Singaporean society, we think of good grades, a good career, earning lots of money, a lot of material needs that we are going for. But when we think about life more in general and more holistically, one element of thinking about it is our physical life.
Right.
So when it comes to our health, how much exercise we take, how do we lead a healthy lifestyle? So that's exercise. The other element is nutrition. How are we eating? What sort of nutrients we're
It
getting?
makes sense though. Yeah.
And another element to that about physical well-being would be how much sleep we get. So we normally talk about exercise, our diet, and our sleep. So that's physical well-being. So that's one element, living our lives. But the next element too would be how do we ensure we continue living our life well? So whether we're going for annual health screenings, that's useful information to know. Do we need to make tweaks to our diet, whether we're sleeping enough, whether we're getting enough exercise? And of course, if you don't feel really well, then go and see a doctor as soon as you can. If we don't live well when it comes to our physical aspects, and we think like stresses in our workplace start showing up, we take really drastic measures in different areas, not really thinking back that, am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating well? This showed up to me maybe about 2 years ago. I couldn't get out of bed because I had a back injury that was from way back. And it just dawned upon me how important physical health was. Because you take it for granted that I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to feel good, and I'm going to show up at the workplace and be fine.
Right.
But the day that you can't get out of bed, you suddenly go back and realize, damn, my physical health is really important. But we take that for granted. But bringing on to that point, because yes, before we can choose on how we create our environment, we might be limited by our finances. So financial well-being is another area that is important to think about. Whether we are planning for the future, so what happens when I retire? What kind of savings do I currently have to help me lead the life I want to do when I retire? That's one area. 2, if shit hits the fan or things get really tough, do I have the right plans to protect myself against that? So that falls under the area of financial well-being too.
Like when you say safety nets, I mean, simple stuff, right? We're referring to like
Insurance, protecting against critical illnesses, for example. Of course, we don't want to think about death, but death so that we can think about how we protect our own family members or our loved ones, those that we leave behind. Those are things we may want to think about if we can afford it.
All right, and that's it for today's episode. Once again, thank you to our sponsors, AIA Singapore, and of course, Mark.
Marco!
We hope that today's conversation has given you a better idea of how to live your best life and maybe even encourage you to make some changes for the better. If you need some tips to achieve your desired lifestyle or holistic wellness goals, check out AIA's Health 360 initiative through the link below.